So, a question I get a lot of, both on Tumblr and here, is how to write strong women, what makes a strong woman a character, and it's like I've given a variety of answers, and I feel like as I grow, my idea of strength also grows, and so, wow, my hair is just totally a mess. But really, there are a few things that I feel like have to be considered when you're doing these kind of strong women characters. First of all, strong. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by a strong female character? And a lot of the times, what I see people doing is defaulting to the binary opposition between active and passive. And this is a big problem because what it does basically is it equates strong to being a fighter. Strong with, having a sword, all that phallic imagery and whatnot. And really what it does is it undermines the ability of female characters to be strong in an emotional sense, to be strong in something that isn't completely physical, being strong mentally, emotionally. And this happens a lot. A lot of times, strong female characters get labeled as strong simply because they do things. Even if what they do is stupid, even if what they do is wrong, even if what they do is reckless, because they do something, they're held to a higher standard of character than someone who appears to just sit around. And you see this a lot when you compare the older Disney female characters to the newer Disney female characters. The original three, Snow, Cindy, and Sleeping, basically they just get, like, they're sexist and blah, 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 whatever. They get completely thrown away. Especially Cinderella, because one of the things, even I suffer from this, because I'm not trying to, say, oh, it's just everyone else. Me too. Would be like, oh, why didn't she kill her step-parents? Why didn't she just leave? Why was she just so nice? And I think when we do that, we undermine the fact that, one, that was her home and she wanted to be there. Two, that was the only family she had and she didn't want to hate them. And three, that we should be able to commend people for being good despite people and society trying to constantly bring them down. That's the thing, we reward people who fight the system and are always going against it. We're like total rebels without a cause. But at the same time, we never congratulate people who don't let the system destroy them or turn them into worse people. It would be so easy for Cinderella to just destroy her step-family, for her to poison them or anything. It'd be so simple. Her being a good person and being nice despite all that's being done to her makes her stronger, not weaker. But I feel like because people want her to be something and be active and be the kind of character that people can be more engaged with, it causes this whole thing of like she's boring or whatever. Whereas you get a character like Ariel, who yes does things and was the beginning of that wave of the rebellious princess, but at the same time she makes stupid decisions. She makes dumb actions. Not all of her decisions are logical or even based on any real basis. Her motivations are flimsy, where with Cinderella, we at least knew why she felt the way she did and how stuff was going on for her. But because Ariel does things, and she's more relatable because she is rebellious and not someone who tries to be a better person despite conflict, it's easier to relate to her because we can easily see how she goes from one point to another. We can easily see that she's doing things. Whereas with Cinderella, it doesn't seem like she's doing anything, where really she is doing a lot. It's just not physical. It's just not something that you can just immediately connect to. And it's one of the big problems, I think, that when we write strong female characters, we want them to just be, completely hard edge and fuck authority, fuck the law, let's break some rules, where that's not always the best thing to do. Sometimes that's just stupid. And we congratulate that because it's just easier to accept and entertain us than someone who is very introvert and most of their stuff is development through thinking or read course. It's more entertaining to watch the active characters and the passive characters. And so we have ended up putting strong as active and weak as passive, when that's not the case at all when you get into the depth of some of these characters. Because on the surface, active and passive are not characters. That's just traits. And on the surface, you can have a character who can swing as many swords as she likes, but she's still a horrible character. And you can have a person who is sweet as molasses, and still she can be a horrible character. It really depends on how you write them. the other thing that has to be seen about the strong woman and writing them is that the whole active passive damsel in distress thing is not the same for every group of women. And there's the whole idea that women, like, minority women, like, we're strong, we can handle anything, we don't need no man, we don't need nobody to take care of us and do whatever we need to do. So we are expected to be strong throughout everything. You know, we can be beaten, we can be tortured, we can do anything, but we'll be on top because we're strong black women and whatever. So for us, we never have gotten the opportunity to be damsel in distress, to be the Princess role characters, to be the kind of people who can be passive or soft or pure or innocent. Those are not tropes that come with certain minority female groups. And when they are, sometimes it's not even treated like a complimentary thing, like the whole, you know, China doll stereotype that has for some Asian women of them being extremely subservient and passive. Not every culture has that, you know, same dichotomy, and that's important to keep in mind, which is why, you know, the character of Gwen from Merlin is so important to me, because yes, she is a more softer, passive character, but it's like she's treated as something to be as a desirable person, someone who people want to protect and care for, but someone who can also be maternal, but someone who is also supporting and kind, but still someone who people find attractive and, you know, sexual to some degree, and innocent and pure. And that's not something that black women get to have a lot in the media, because we don't, those tropes are not connected to us in the way that they're connected to other groups of women. And so when people knock her for not being an action chick like Morgana's character, while I understand people is not entertaining to watch, it means something to me, because that's not what that type of women get in the media. We don't get that image, because we're all supposed to be these strong black women. And sometimes it's good to have that balance of, yes, we can be strong, and Gwen has her moments of strength, totally, but she's also can have moments where she can be soft and be passive and be just a supporting person, not the one out waving a sword. And I think that it's important to recognize that when you're writing strong women and strong women of color, that there are different stereotypes, different dichotomies for all those groups. And what works for one group of women might not necessarily work for another group of women, because those dichotomies are different. You know, the Madonna and the horror thing is not something that I think can be passed on to all groups of women if you look at the history of how they've been stereotyped in the media. So I think it's important to also recognize that, you know, not that there's anything wrong with strong black women, because that's where I come from in my own background, but I think it's important to recognize that it's different for every group, and that sometimes the passive traits that you put on some women of color can be a good thing. But I think that the most important thing when you're writing a strong female character is to write a strong character. You know, the fact that they're female is going to be important to their lives, obviously, but it's important that they are a strong character to begin with. And that doesn't mean that they have to just be one way or the other, that they have to be a complete warrior woman or, you know, the sweetest person you know. They have to be well-written characters. You know, if they're a warrior, then have them actually win fights. You know, it's very frustrating when you have female characters who are supposed to be so strong and so independent and whatever, but every single time they fight, they need to be saved. They'll have like maybe one fight or two where they will win, but every other time they have to be saved, they have to be helped, they have to be holding their hand, or they fail at everything. And you know, people are like, well, it gives them a journey, but it also is disingenuous, because if they're supposed to be so badass, and the whole story is like, she's a badass soldier, you can't stop the girl, bam, boom, boom, boom. Bad girls do it well, but she doesn't really do anything. It just seems like you're just trying to write a faux action girl. You want to give me the illusion of her doing things, but you want to keep her also demure and feminine and blah, blah, blah. So you want to have your cake and eat it too, but at the same time, you're also ruining that character, because now they don't make sense. And I think, like, if you want to write a character who is soft and sweet, there's more to it than just saccharine sweetness. You know, I think what makes a lot of the more passive characters work is that there's a lot going on in their heads. They may have this one phase where they're being soft and sweet, but in their minds they're thinking, they're learning, they're growing, they're evolving. And it's harder to do because it's in other medias besides novels, because it's not something that you can get instant gratification from when you're watching TV, which is why I think, like on Game of Thrones, certain characters suffer because their storylines are more internalized, so that you can't so the viewer doesn't really benefit from those internalizations unless they're invested in that character, and it's hard to get that on screen if the person is just thinking and growing in that way, than to put someone who's like having all these fun dialogues and sword fights and whatnot. So I think that when you're writing a passive character, what is important is to make them complex. Why do they handle the situation that way? Why don't they pick up the sword? Why do they choose to have this softer approach? And that's what makes those characters interesting, because if they're just sweet and for the sake of being sweet, it's, you know, it's not it's not interesting either way, because then it's just kind of like, oh, it's just saccharine sweetness. So I think what's important is that you're writing a good character who is more than just your facilitator to have, oh, I wrote a strong female character, look how cool I am. Oh, look, I wrote a sweet female character, look how good I am. What is important about that character? Who are they? What do they stand for? We have to know them. We have to be invested in them. We have to care about them. We should be able to read a book about this. We should be able to read a book about this character and know what they do. Have an understanding of who they are, because that's when they become a character and not just words on paper. And so I feel no matter what you're writing, male, female, it's important to, one, be knowledgeable of about when you're playing into stereotypes about gender, because I feel like the whole action girl trope has really, like, while it has empowered women to a degree, it has also made our empowerment depending on our ability to be more masculine. Understanding that those tropes don't go over to all groups of women, and that when you're trying to write outside of your group, to also understand where the females of that group come from and how they handle situations and why it's different for them. And 3, to really focus on writing a good character first and foremost, because that's what people want to read about. It doesn't matter if they're active or passive. Well, it does, but at the end of the day, as a writer, what should matter is that they are well-written, well-rounded characters, regardless of them being male or female.